the only man. Mike Tyson was actually afraid to fight. Imagine the year is 1986. The lights are dim. The smoke is thick. A 20-year-old kid walks out. No robe, no socks, just black trunks and pure bad intentions. That was Mike Tyson, the baddest man on earth. He didn't just win fights, he took souls. He was the hurricane that leveled everything in its path. Opponents were defeated before the first bell even rang. They saw his eyes. They saw the predator, and they froze. But what if I told you the predator had a ghost? What if behind that iron mask there was a man Mike actually feared? Not a man with bigger muscles, not a man with a faster jab, but a man who knew Mike's darkest secrets. Today, we go behind the curtain, beyond the knockouts, beyond the fame. We talk about the only name that made the Iron Mike Tyson human, the only man he was truly afraid to face. Close your eyes. Go back to Atlantic City. 1988. The air in the arena felt heavy, like a storm was coming. Michael Spinks was across the ring, an undefeated champion, a master technician. But Spinks wasn't looking at a boxer. He was looking at an executioner. 91 seconds. That's all it took. Tyson didn't just throw punches, he threw bricks. He was a 220-pound wrecking ball with the speed of a lightweight. No ego, no dancing, just a seek and destroy mission. Cus D'Amato had built a monster. He taught Mike the peekaboo style. Bob and weave, slip and rip. By the time you saw the hook coming, you were already looking at the ceiling. The referee's count was just a formality. Every legend from the 70s and 80s watched in awe. They had never seen this kind of violence. Mike was a nightmare in black trunks. He walked to the ring with no music, just the sound of rattling chains. That silence was louder than any roar. It told the world, I am here to end you. He was the richest athlete on the planet, the youngest heavyweight champion in history, and the world thought he was made of steel. They thought he was bulletproof. The fans saw a god, the opponents saw a devil. But inside that locker room before the lights went up, there was a crack in the armor, because even the baddest man on earth had a shadow he couldn't outrun. Even Iron Mike had a man he didn't want to see in the opposite corner. You're waiting for a name, right? You're thinking of Holyfield, or maybe Lennox Lewis. Big men, strong men, men who eventually beat him. But no, Mike wasn't afraid of their gloves. He wasn't afraid of their power. The man Mike Tyson truly feared was Kevin Rooney. Wait. Stop. I know what you're thinking. Rooney, the short, balding trainer? The guy who stood in Mike's corner for the Spinks fight? Yes, that's the man. But it wasn't physical fear. It was something much deeper. It was the fear of being nothing. Rooney wasn't just a trainer. He was the last link to Cus D'Amato. He was the keeper of the peekaboo secret. He was the only man who could look Mike in the eye and call him a coward. When Mike looked at Rooney, he didn't see a coach. He saw his conscience. He saw the ghost of his father figure, Cus. As long as Rooney was there, Mike had to be perfect. He had to be disciplined. He had to be the warrior. And that terrified Mike. The fame was getting too loud. The money was too fast. Don King was whispering in his ear, You don't need him, Mike. You're the king. You're the god. But Mike knew. Deep down in the dark of night, he knew. Without Rooney, the system would fail. Without Rooney, the monster would lose his leash. He feared facing the world without the man who held the blueprint to his soul. He was afraid of the truth Rooney represented, that Mike Tyson was just a scared kid from Brownsville, hiding behind a champion's belt. The day Mike fired him was the day Mike's real downfall began. He didn't just lose a trainer, he lost his protection from himself. When Rooney left, the wall crumbled. The discipline? Gone. The head movement? It vanished. Suddenly, Mike Tyson wasn't a technician anymore. He was just a brawler, a man trying to win with one punch. And the world started to notice. Don King was smiling. The yes men were cheering. But Mike's eyes, they looked different. They looked hollow. He was the king of the world, but he was a prisoner in his own skin. He was terrified of the mirror. You see, Kevin Rooney was the only man who could tell Mike no. He was the only one who didn't care about the Ferraris or the mansions. He cared about the jab, the slip, the hook. Without that anchor, Mike was lost at sea. The fear of being exposed started to eat him alive. Then came Tokyo. 1990. Buster Douglas, a 42-1 underdog. The world saw a shocking knockout, but if you look closely at the tapes, you see a man who had already lost. No Rooney in the corner, no cuss in his head, on just a lonely man who didn't know how to fight his way out of the dark. He was afraid of the very thing he had become. A caricature, a monster for hire. The baddest man on earth was crying inside. He missed the basement gym in Catskill. He missed the smell of old sweat and the sound of Rooney's voice screaming, "Move your head, Mike." That voice was his safety net. Without it, he was just falling. He didn't fear the punches of Holyfield or Lewis. He feared the silence that told him he was finally alone. The invincible Iron Mike was gone, and in his place stood a man who realized he was never truly fighting his opponents. He was always fighting the boy from Brownsville, and that boy was losing. Mike Tyson wasn't just a boxer, he was a force of nature. But nature has a way of humbling the strongest. In the end, it wasn't a heavyweight's fist that broke Iron Mike. It was the loss of the men who saw the boy behind the beast. Rooney, Cuss, the foundation. When they left, the soul of the champion went with them. We look back now, 30 years later. We see the highlights, the 90-second destructions. But we also see a man who survived himself. Maybe that's why we still love him. Not because he was invincible, but because he was human. He showed us that even the baddest man on earth can feel fear. Even a king can be lonely in a room full of people. So, I ask you, the real boxing fans, do you think Mike would have ever lost if Rooney stayed in his corner? Was it the opponents who beat him, or was it the ghosts? Drop a comment below. Let's talk about the golden era. If this story brought back memories, hit that like button. It helps us keep the history of the ring alive. Until the next bell rings, respect the game.